here?
I think that the word I have is around noon. And it makes sense. The schools are high school's dismissing at 10:30, and they're just with blocks of downtown Emmaus from the triangle. So
Okay, thank you.
my best guess. Yeah.
Carol, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Danielle. Hi, baby. So listen, the meeting with Biden, what we learned tomorrow from yesterday in our in the meeting that we were in, is that we are not going to be able to. She's not going to be able to give us any tickets to see Biden because he's just coming basically to go to certain businesses.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It should have been a campaign event, in my opinion.
Well, he had already been here for an event prior to that, and so he's
yeah,
coming.
but not a campaign event. He's been visiting. He visited who was it? A business, right?
When he was at Valley Forge, he was at the college nearby, and that was a campaign event.
That was a campaign
right, but
event.
That's not here. That's not out.
We want him everywhere.
Yeah.
So I have recommended, I actually did this in 2020. I had recommended that Joe Biden do a blue collar bus tour where instead of just going to Philadelphia and Scranton and some of those areas, that he actually should start in the Lehigh Valley with Senator Casey, go by bus to perhaps Reading and Berks County, then up 61 to Schuylkill and Columbia County, and then end up maybe in Luzerne or Lackawanna County. That's what we need to do. We need to engage with rural blue-collar workers. We need to get them back into the Democratic fold. And I think with all of his policies that will be good. So we're going to start in a couple of minutes. I was hoping that everybody would, well, first of all, if you could mute yourself, please. And also put in the chat the town that you're from and the county.
Hi, Todd.
Hey, Roger. So again, mute yourselves and also put in the chat the town and the county that you're from.
Hi, Todd.
Who said hi?
It's Veda.
Oh, hi, Veda.
St. Clair.
Yes, you are from St. Clair.
I am.
Good. So we got a lot of people so far from Lehigh County as well as Schuylkill. Who's here from Carbon? Good. Carol and Jeff. Hey, Jeff, how are you doing? He was a good volunteer for Susan Wild last cycle too.
Doing great.
Good.
Thanks, Todd, for saying.
Sure.
Hey, Todd, it's Serena Burlow from Palmerton here. I'm the Immortal Cinema here.
All right.
Okay. Hi, Serena.
You want your,
Yeah.
do you want the camera on?
Yeah.
Hi, Todd. It's Karen Hansler and Charlie from Andrews.
Hi.
Todd, I think you froze.
I froze?
Oh, it looked that way.
I don't think so. I'm admitting people in, so.
Oh, okay.
Great acting job for freezing though, Todd. I gotta say, I thought you froze too.
I know that Matt is on. Matt, are you with Malcolm?
I'm not, but he
Okay.
will be on any
All
second
right.
now.
Okay. I want 100 people on here tonight, so we're at 47. So that's a pretty good sign.
Hi,
Since this is
Todd.
our first event of the year. Hey, Lori. We
How
were
are
just
you?
discussing the Biden visit.
Oh, it's
tomorrow.
a big secret. It's a big
I
secret.
know.
You should
Well-
see all the best friends I have now.
Well, I'm obviously not your best friend because you did, well, see, I didn't contact you because I knew you'd be busy and
No,
it's an official event.
I didn't get invited.
You didn't.
This is a policy visit. They are going to a few local businesses to tout his economic policies and how they help small businesses. So other than that, I have no details. It's not a campaign visit. It's not anything like that. People that need to know do know it, and we're not in that mix right now. And it's no hard feelings. It is what it is.
Yep. I'm sure he will be back in the Lehigh Valley a few more times. And as I said before, I'd like to get them up for a rural blue collar bus tour. So, okay, it's 7:06. I did see Malcolm come in. Will everybody mute themselves, please? And you can unmute yourself once candidates are done speaking and there's an open time for questions. Okay, so if everybody can mute yourself, I do keep muting people, but they unmute them. So, all right, no offense. Malcolm, are you here?
I am, Chairman. How are you?
Okay, great. So do you want to start this off? Because we have, I think, the best speaker in Pennsylvania right now in front of us, Malcolm Kenyatta. It's a new headshot. He didn't want to be on camera. Actually, he's in transit, so he couldn't be on camera. But I'm going to let you lead us off. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chairman, and thank you all for being here. And Todd is right. I am in transit. I was at Dan McCaffrey's swearing in, which is made possible by all of your hard work. It was incredible. Our incredible governor spoke, and so many others. I was at his swearing in, but now I'm driving to an event for one of my colleagues who's running for re-election to the state house, and so that's why I'm driving, and that's where I am, and that's why I can't be on the phone. But really, I just want to say, first of all, thank you again. I know that it's a Thursday evening, and it's never, ever lost on me that you all could be doing 1,000 different things, but yet you choose to use your talents, your networks, bring your passion and energy to help us doing the critical work of expanding opportunity and protecting the bulwark that makes all those opportunities possible of our democracy. It was just a little over 3 years ago where people showed up to our nation's capital, armed not only with weapons, but armed with lies about our democracy, about not just what the results of the election were, but about who they thought should be able to participate in that election in the first place. I start there because we need to recognize that in this moment, as dire as that threat is, as critical of a mission that I think it is to make sure that in 2024, we make sure that every single election denier either does not win office or is not reelected to office, as critical as that is, we need to recognize that I think a similarly situated threat to our democracy are the folks who aren't showing up to the Capitol anywhere. They're staying at home because they don't believe that there's anybody in it for them. And I will tell you, when I think about certain parts of my community, Philadelphia remains the poorest big city in America. You can't fault people for looking around their neighborhood and feeling despondent about what's going on. That's why I decided to run for Auditor General, because it is the one office in state government that's about finding things that aren't working, finding ways in which government is not delivering or showing up in people's lives in ways that they can see, touch, and feel, and then bringing people together to fix it. It's the one position in office in state government that's about being the watchdog and the public advocate for Pennsylvanians to ensure that their government is delivering on the American promise in ways that make a measurable impact in people's real lives. And for me, These issues are never hypothetical. When I think about this cold winter like we're having right now, that winter storm that many of us just lived through, we needed La Heap in my house. Not as hypothetical, we needed that, or there would be no heat. There are so many Pennsylvanians who understand that. People understand what it means to need SNAP benefits to feed your family. People understood, like many of us experienced during the pandemic, where you couldn't wait 2 and 3 weeks to get your unemployment. You needed it to show up and you needed it to happen quickly. The Auditor General is in this incredible position to help speak to that real frustration that people are living every single day, and to do the critical work of translating that frustration into ways that shift the systems that impact people's everyday lives. You know, one of my favorite quotes, and there's somebody on this call smarter than me who can tell you who first said it, but somebody once said that data is the language of systems. And I love that. Because any one of us on this call can think anecdotally of ways in which government hasn't worked, hasn't shown up in our lives, could work more efficiently. But until we take these things that we know anecdotally and translate that into data to speak to the system and to ensure that the type of change happens systematically, we don't see the changes that we need to see. That's why this office is so important. And sometimes I'll have people say to me, well, Malcolm, the Auditor General's office is so boring. The Auditor General's office is not boring. We've just had some boring Auditor Generals over the years. And I promise you that by the time we're done, with your help, after the first 4 years, everybody's going to be trying to run for Auditor General, because we're going to utilize every single tool at our disposal to make government work in ways that people can see, touch, and feel. Here are the 3 big priorities that I think we have to have in this office. Well, actually, let me say 4 priorities, but I won't dwell on the first one. The first one is we have to beat the current election denier that is the Auditor General, because you don't get to become the Auditor General unless you win. And as I said, I don't think there should be anybody in office who couldn't respect the results of the election. Our current Auditor General said in 2020, he believed his election was fair, it was fine. But he had questions about all the other elections on the ballot. He didn't know. He wasn't sure. He was on the same ballot, but you know, there still could be some problems with the other races. I mean, that's the type of profiling courage, I say very sarcastically, that we do not need in the Auditor General's office, and we're going to do everything we need to do and do the critical work of getting him out of the Auditor General's office. But once we win, I've laid out 3 major priorities. The first is we have to rebuild the Bureau of School Audits. All of you on this call know that there was a Commonwealth court case that took years and years and years to work its way through the court system that said plainly, Pennsylvania is falling short of its constitutional obligation to provide all of our young people with a thorough and efficient education. We aren't doing it. And this idea that we are no longer doing annual compliance audits of our schools is a disaster. And in my mind, it's completely disqualifying that was one of the first things our Auditor General did, was to say we're no longer going to provide that type of oversight for our schools. He was also asked by our state party chair, Senator Street, at a Senate appropriations hearing, if he would do a statewide audit, a statewide special audit to understand the real issues with our school facilities. It's not just in Philadelphia, all across our Commonwealth. We have school facilities where our kids are not getting education in the best environments that they should receive that high quality education, but instead they're going into buildings that are dilapidated, buildings that haven't been updated or renovated in decades. In my community in North Philadelphia, we just got our first new school building built in 75 years. Think about that. 75 years since a new school building was built in my community. And so that means that we're sending kids to schools that we know have lead, asbestos, and mold. He was asked if he would do an audit so we can help understand the full depth and scope of this problem. He said no. I say yes, and it will be one of the first things that I do. The second priority I have is to not just talk about working people, but to actually use the office to help and support working people. So I've said on day one, we're going to create a first of its kind Bureau of Labor and Worker Protections to make sure we're using every tool at our disposal, compliance audits, special audits, performance audits, to understand how we can better root out wage theft, wage splitting, the type of things that happen on jobs that make it difficult for people to go to work and know for certain that they're going to be safe or that they're going to be taken care of in case they get hurt. And we've passed legislation over the years to address those things. But if you talk to anybody who's getting up every day, like many of you are working, you know that those worker protections aren't always happening in practice in the way that we envisioned in legislation. And so we have to work with labor and industry and other agencies to make sure those things are happening in practice. And that's why I'm happy that because of that commitment and because of my 100% pro-labor record, every single union who has endorsed in this race, without exception, has endorsed me. And we're incredibly proud of that. The final thing that I'll say is we have to use this office to create communities of learning. As somebody who's been to all 67 of our counties, not only campaigning for our Democratic candidates, but for our Democratic values, I am always so stunned by somebody who has a great idea or is implementing a great program in some corner of our Commonwealth, and that's not common practice across the Commonwealth. If somebody figures out something well, if somebody in Schuylkill County or Lehigh County and Carbon County is doing something great, why the heck should we reinvent the wheel anywhere? No, we should take those best practices and share them. That's a part of the way you limit costs. When you don't reinvent the wheel, you just share the technology and allow people to utilize it in ways that can make all of our lives better. And that really leads me to where I began. If we're going to restore people's faith in government, it's not just about finding bad actors, and we're going to do that, I promise you. I'm going to show no fear and no favor. But it's also about finding people who are good actors, finding people who are showing that government can work, that it can deliver for people in their lives. And that's the role of the Auditor General. And I will end here. I know that so many of you will get a sticker from me next time I see you in person if you have read even one of Tim DeFore's audits. I'm sure many of you have not read even one. And I highlight that because that's a big problem. That's a big problem. We have to make sure also that the audits that we do, that these reports that we put out are presented in ways that people can easily digest them and can utilize that data in that language to go to their local bureau council meeting or their local county council meeting and say, hey, the Auditor General took the thing that was happening in my life, showed how other people are similarly situated, and laid out a roadmap for you all to do something different that can make government work better for me. And that becomes this incredible tool for organizing people and empowering them to be more engaged in their government. And so I will stop there. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And Chairman, I know you have run in a very, very tight ship, but you tell me what to do next. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all.
Well, first of all, Matt, if you're on, perhaps type in Malcolm's website information so people can donate or volunteer. Obviously, petition period is starting very shortly. I would imagine all the chairs are going to be getting the information. I know Schuylkill County is having 4 events. I'm sure Carbon and Lehigh are doing the same. So there will be no problem with us getting enough signatures for you. Does anybody have any questions for Malcolm? You can unmute yourself and ask a question. And by the way, I just want to say you're a star because you have been everywhere for the last 2 years. I met you, I remember, in April of 21 with a number of other candidates. We just came out of COVID in Schuylkill County, and a number of candidates came to our meeting. And you've just performed for everybody over the last couple of years. And I just want to, on behalf of everybody, I think I want to say thank you for everything that you've done for all the different candidates.
Well, thank you so much. And listen, we have so much more to do. You know, I'm the only state rep in the country who the president put on his national re-advisory board for his reelection. And I highlight that because I believe that this is going to be a team, that democracy is a team sport, and that's going to require a team effort. And that's my commitment, to make sure that I'm not just going to be focused in 2024 on electing myself, but we have Ryan Bizzarro, our endorsed candidate for treasurer, who we need to make sure we do everything for. Whoever comes out of this attorney general primary, and certainly Senator Casey and President Biden. I'm going to be doing everything I can for everybody, because it's not going to be good enough to just have a good auditor general. We need good people in every single level. And so to every chair here, every committee person, thank you all so much. And I will stop there and let you hear from your next person.
Okay, Ryan Bizzaro is the endorsed candidate. By the way, a few weeks ago, the state committee, Pennsylvania Democrats met, and Malcolm Kenyatta was endorsed on the first election for Auditor General. And he is now followed by Ryan Bizzaro, who has been endorsed by the PA Dems for Treasurer. So Ryan, it's all yours. Welcome.
Chair, how are you? I'm sorry, I'm at Judge McCaffrey's installation tonight. This is the most quiet space I could find, so it's a little dark here.
No problem.
But first and foremost, I just want to thank everybody on this call who was a state committee member or a chair who supported me in helping me earn that 83% of the endorsement vote at state committee. So thank you all so much. Certainly wouldn't be in this position without you. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Representative Ryan Bizzaro. I live in Erie County. I represent the 3rd District up there. I also serve as the House Majority Policy Chairman, and I'm proud to be part of a leadership team that helped create the first Democratic House majority in 12 years. A little bit about me and where I come from. Up in Erie County, I represent a swing district up there. I've made it a political career of taking out Republicans and winning in tough races. I'm running for state treasurer, and I'm happy to be here today as your endorsed candidate for that. Look, I think the Treasury office is vastly in need of being brought into the 21st century, right? There are so many things, so many missed opportunities that the Pennsylvania Treasury can be doing to help everyday Pennsylvanians, like what Ohio does, what Illinois does. Some of the most advanced Treasury systems are in those states. Pennsylvania absolutely needs to up its game and actually use this office to help people through impact investment, through infrastructure investment funds, through expanding the 529 plans. It's more than just getting unclaimed property back into people's hands. Look, I know this is going to be a tough race. It's going to be tough for all of us. 2024 is not going to be easy for Democrats. So we need a regionalized and motivated ticket. And I'm happy to be a part of that. We have Bob Casey representing the Northeast. We have Malcolm in the Southeast Philly area, and I'm in the Northwest. And however the AG race shapes up, that's how it shapes up. But right now we're looking at having a nice regionalized ticket with candidates who all get along with one another, who all work well with one another, and in fact, who all of us can beat Republicans in the fall. I know I'm a threat to the current Republican incumbent. Right now, I don't know if any of you have solved that in your media market, the Commonwealth Foundation, the Commonwealth Leaders Fund, the same folks who spent all that money against Judge McCaffrey just did a $555,000 media buy against me in the Erie media market, the Johnstown media market, and the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton media market. So that's what I'm up against. I'm taking on big money. Right off the bat, but I've spent 10 years of beating big money. So I need your help. I can't do this without you. Petitions are coming out in a few weeks. And I would appreciate everybody's help and support on that. And instead of me continuing to talk, because I can talk all night, I'm happy to take any questions from anyone. Guys, take care.
Does anybody have any questions for Ryan? Don't be shy. Ryan, we do need you to visit our area. I know that you're out in Erie. We do have some petition events. Hopefully you can attend, but we will, I know Laura, so I will give her information about upcoming NEPA events. So please feel free to visit some of these rural areas. You won't just win with Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Erie.
Well, coming from a county that's similar to the counties in NEPA, I know how important they are and how important that that electorate is and those voters are, because everybody deserves to have their voice heard. And I'm no stranger to touring the state.
Go ahead.
Ryan, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, Ryan, 2 things. Being at Judge McCaffrey's installation is a damn good place for you to be. Everybody on the screen was supporting him. Secondly, I want you to get hold of Emily Kincaid. She's introducing our bill on juror compensation. Please get a hold of Emily. Thank you.
Emily's a good friend and an esteemed colleague of mine, and I will absolutely follow up with her. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ryan?
I do.
Go ahead, Lori.
Hi, Chair.
Hello, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Great. It's wonderful to see you. Just a quick question or comparison, if you will. You still continue to have a competitor in this race who has not been endorsed. Could you kind of differentiate for us the differences between you and your competitor?
Well, sure. I mean, and I don't want to speak ill of any Democrat because that's not what I do, right? But I mean, I think the most glaring difference is that I've run for one office before in my life, and that's state representative in an overwhelming Republican district, and I've won. I have the backing of my county and my surrounding counties, whereas my opponent, this will be the 6th office she's ran for in 8 years. She's never won. She's never won anything. Her own county does not support her. So I don't know how you're going to even get off the ground if your own county does not support you. I have more experience. I'm the only one who has any government experience. I'm the only one who has any type of finance or budget experience, real government budget and finance experience. I've held balanced 11 state budgets with billion-dollar price tags on them. And quite frankly, I'm the only one that could win in the fall with your help.
Thank you.
Those are the big and most glaring differences between my opponent and I.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For that question, Lori. I was unaware that the other Democrat did not drop out of the race. I'm surprised by that, actually. And I know the same thing is with Malcolm. He still has a challenger, which surprised me. But okay, any other questions for Ryan?
I have a question.
I put my hand up like a good boy.
So Ryan, hi, I'm Beth. What one thing distinguishes you from the incumbent? So that, I mean, asking so that we can tell our, the members of our county.
Well, look, if you're going to lie and say that the election results were stolen, you're going to lie about people's paychecks. You're going to lie about what's in the pension funds. Quite frankly, she does not know how to do her job. Ask her any questions about the Treasury's office. She can't answer them. She won't answer them. She speaks only through a spokesman. I want to change the face of Treasury. I literally want to bring Treasury into your community, into communities across the Commonwealth. That's what I'm offering. I'm offering a treasurer that knows the job and actually wants to do the job. I'm not auditioning for anything else. I'm not trying to run against John Fetterman in a few years. I'm not trying to potentially challenge Josh Shapiro. I want to be the treasurer. I'm a numbers guy. I'm a policy guy. This is a nerdy office for a nerdy guy, and I'm your candidate.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Mike, I think you have your hand up also.
I did, yes. Ryan, I guess I would just ask you, so we're going to go out and try to get a petition signed and so forth for you. You mentioned earlier that one of the things that you're looking to do is to kind of bring us into the 21st century. Illinois, Ohio are a little more advanced than we are. Other than that, like what can we say to people? What's your hot button issue? What's the big thing that you would, other than, taking elections for face value and not making nonsense up? Like, what's the thing that we can say that you're fighting to do for people?
Well, sure. I mean, I'm a big believer that we need to start doing impact investment here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, investing in our small businesses, letting them expand. This Treasury office can do that. I want to do an impact investment, and I want to do an infrastructure fund. Those are the two main glaring things that I want to bring to the job. And I think that you will see this impact communities drastically. You see the communities that this has happened to in other states. We're missing the boat on this. We are decades behind on what other states have been doing. And I can not only tell you when I'm treasurer that we can paint a picture of how it's going to happen, but I'm going to show you what's going to be done. Communities of all shapes and sizes, urban, rural, suburban, we see this impact investment completely transforming other states, and Pennsylvania deserves a shot at that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, you're up.
Thank you. Thank you. Ryan, I just wanted to say that I guess it was sometime last year I read an op-ed that you wrote about making constitutional amendments more more accessible to the people and improving the whole process. Mm-hmm. And so I wish you were still in the legislature, but you definitely have my vote because of that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I believe right now in the House of Representatives, you only need a simple majority vote in order to push any constitutional amendment into the next chamber. What my bill did was require a 2/3 majority vote. So we can't simply change the Constitution based off of political whims here. We've got to have buy-in from the other side, because none of us will have a majority that's greater than 2/3. So I thought that was important. I think it's a very important part of the process, and we've seen Republicans weaponize our Constitution, and I have a bill that would prohibit that from happening. It's passed the House of Representatives, and now it's waiting in the Senate. Hopefully the Senate will run it. But I appreciate your support. Thank you, and I appreciate your kind remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Good luck, and anything you need, don't hesitate to call on the chairs. Thanks again.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all of you. I'm looking forward to working and getting to meet each and every one of you. So thank you all. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, next up is Kellen White.
Hey, Todd, how are you? I am not Bob Casey, as is probably obvious to everyone on this call. My name is Kellen White. I am a senior advisor for Bob Casey's reelection campaign. Unfortunately, the senator was scheduled to be here but couldn't make it because, if you've seen the news, an officer was shot in Scranton. It is likely he will not make it through the night, and the senator wanted to be there with the other officers and the family, so he sends his regrets here. But I'll tell you this, Todd knows how to find me and get me on the phone, and has taught me the importance of all of these counties, especially Schuylkill, after we work together. Yes, Todd.
Helen, can we stop for a minute? I'd like to just pause for a moment of silence for the best wishes for the police officer and his family. I just think, out of respect, we should do that. So just take a few seconds, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Kellen.
Thank you, Todd. So I'm here tonight with August Williams, who is our deputy for the eastern side of the state, and will be the point of contact for all of your counties and the ones along this side. We'll have a western deputy as well. But we're here tonight to ask for your help, as we know Senator Casey's about to enter the toughest reelection campaign he's ever had. His opponent, Dave McCormick, or as I like to call him, Connecticut Dave, because that's where he lives, is a millionaire hedge fund manager who is going to enter this race and try to buy it. Bob Casey famously can name every county in Pennsylvania, looking at a map and pointing to it. He's someone who has stood up for the values that we all espouse here in Pennsylvania. In fact, every time I've heard him speak, he brings up a constituent named Faith Lewis. She's a great-grandmother who's raising her great-granddaughter. And when they talked about it, she said, well, that's what we do here. We help each other out. And that is the values that Bob Casey continues to fight for in the Senate. He looks at this election and breaks it down really to 4 core fights that are happening that really show the difference between him and the person running against them. The first is the fight for rights. Senator Casey has continued to fight for our democracy and our voting rights. He's fighting for our worker rights and for women's rights. He's working to pass the PRO Act, which would protect the right to organize a union. And he's fighting against the tax breaks for union busting, while his opponent, Dave McCormick, has spent his career sending American jobs overseas. Senator Casey has also been fighting for women's rights. He supports the Women's Health Protection Act in the wake of Dobbs, while his opponent called Dobbs a great victory. Senator Casey's also in the fight to lower costs. As you know, pharmaceutical companies have made a lot of money off of the backs of prescriptions, but it's under Senator Casey's leadership that now insulin is capped at $35 a month for seniors. He's fighting and loves to talk about, and if you get to hear him, you'll hear him talk about it, greedflation and the record rising prices that we're seeing on working people over the years. And lastly, he's defending corporations. He's going after corporations that are raising prices. He wants to continue, he doesn't want to continue the tax cuts for corporations. And in fact, his opponent wants to make them permanent, and that would happen at the expense of our middle class. The third fight is the fight for the economic freedom for our workers. Senator Casey has been standing up to China his entire career in the Senate, while his opponent has decided managed billions of dollars for the Chinese Communist Party, and in fact, he increased their investments by 108,000%. I always think it's a typo, but in fact, it was 108,000. Senator Casey has passed legislation that created tens of thousands of jobs, and he's still working every day to end those tax breaks for those union busting companies. But lastly, the fight that might be the most important is the fight for our children, our seniors, our veterans, and people with disabilities. It's Senator Casey that helped pass the ABLE Act, which allows people with disabilities to save for the future and has been called one of the most groundbreaking laws passed in the Senate for people with disabilities. The PACT Act is one of his signature acts, and you'll probably see him across the Commonwealth talking about this. That provides care for our veterans who suffered after being exposed to the burn pits, excuse me. All of this shows that Senator Casey has been fighting for us. And as I said in the beginning, this is going to be his toughest reelection. We are fighting against a stream of consciousness that says, well, we all love Bobby. Bobby's always okay. Senator Casey will be fine, right? But what we need to do is motivate all of our Democrats up and down the ticket to go vote, because we need Senator Casey back in the Senate. We need President Biden back in the White House. And we need people like Malcolm Kenyatta and Ryan Bizzarro holding the row offices that really make sure that the people of Pennsylvania can hold government accountable. The question is, how can you help? Well, we will have we will be launching our petition program shortly. I believe next week, and the chairs will get this information soon. The PA Dems will be hosting a meeting to sort of go through the petition process. We are working closely with them. Your area will have a regional organizing director and August who will be able to help you all with your petitions. And please, please, please keep me and August apprised of the events you have so that we can get them on the calendar as soon as possible. What we know is Senator Casey, as a sitting senator, is in DC 75% of the time trying to do things like keep the government open. But when he is in the Commonwealth, he wants to see as many of the counties as he can, because he knows how important it is to visit all of them, because he's represented you all for so long. So you can go to bobcasey.com to find opportunities to volunteer. I will drop my email address and August's email address into the chat. Feel free to reach out to us at any time. It's our job to make sure that you guys are getting what you need from us. And I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Kellen or the Casey campaign?
I don't have
Mikhail,
a question.
go ahead, Mikhail. I was just going to point to you. I know what you're going to ask, so go ahead.
All right, yeah, you're on it. You know, I look forward to seeing Senator Casey and perhaps Malcolm Kenyatta at this year's Pride event in Schuylkill County on June 8th. I think it's imperative to make this visit and to meet the young people who populate this absolutely fabulous event. From year to year, we've been growing. We've been registering more and more voters, as you know, Todd or Mary Beth or anybody that's on this this call can attest to. The LGBTQ community, most especially the trans community, has been under fire, and we're in the crosshairs of many, dare I say, Christo-fascist legislators who are, and the most recent, West Virginia, where I heard they're trying to pass legislation to keep trans people, 2,500 feet away from public libraries, schools, and so on. The young people in this county are really haired out about everything that's happening in this nation, and they need to hear the voice of reason coming from Washington to say, we've got your back. This is not going to happen in Pennsylvania. Can you take that and run with that for June 8th?
I am sure that August has already written it down. Todd, if you can just connect us so we can get it onto into the hands of our capable operations team and both our scheduler and then the official side scheduler, so we can try to block that date out. I will say that the senator probably won't mind at all, because Schuylkill is a lot closer to Scranton than Washington DC is, so he might even get to sleep in his bed. So you can reach out. We will try to confirm that as soon as possible for you.
Right, yeah, we already made that connection and a yes has already been made, you know, and I guess it was just clearances administratively. So I believe we can look forward to seeing you on June 8th.
Can't wait.
Absolutely, thank you.
Of course.
Caitlin, this
Tina,
is
the
Caitlin, this-
chair of Carbon County, has her hand up. Tina, are you there? There you go. You're unmuted, so you should be able to talk, Tina. Can't hear you. Does anybody else have a question while we're waiting for Tina?
Caitlin, this is Roger Thomas. I want to reaffirm how much I appreciate what Bob Casey is doing for second chance inmates. Okay, he's really doing excellent work on that. It reflects Christianity. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Todd,
Yes.
I'm sorry, honey. I can't
That's okay.
find my hand raised button, so I'm raising my hand.
I see that. Okay.
Is it okay to go?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, I'm starting to get a lot of requests here in Lehigh County or Lehigh Valley, if you will. Is Bob Casey going to open an office up here, or is there going to be some money that is more local, whether it be out of Philadelphia office or whatever? Right now, other than the two email addresses that were just provided, I just saved those. Is there any more going to occur up here? And what does Bob Casey's campaign look like in terms of a coordinated event with the rest of our candidates?
Yes, so I'll be able to answer sort of that in three parts. One, August, who's on this call, started yesterday as our deputy for this side of the state. So part of his job will be when you call to drive up to your county and talk to you and see what you need. So he'll be, as of right now, the person that you're most in contact with. Once I imagine we get through the primary and the president's team is more on the ground and the coordinated stands up, I got brought on while I was still doing Judge Lane with Todd to help sort of think through what a coordinated effort would look like. And so I work very closely with the PA Dems now, and we'll work closely with the Biden folks when they're on the ground. You'll notice my email is not at bobcasey.com. It's because I technically work for the state party, because I am working on that coordination. So we are planning to have an unprecedented coordination up and down the ticket to make sure that we don't just win the presidency in the Senate, but we went all the way down the ticket, because it's what Pennsylvanians deserve. And offices, I don't know right now. That would be a discussion that happens after the primary.
Tina asked her question in the chat. Does Casey have a plan for affordable housing and the homeless issue that is resulting from the cost of housing?
Yeah, so part of the greedflation report that Senator Casey released on his official side, it talks about general affordability and that how the price of goods, the price of housing, the price of everything continues to go up, even as inflation has gone down. And this is driven by corporate greed. So he is constantly exploring what can be done from a federal standpoint to prevent this, but also taking the corporations to task. I will make sure that we send to the chairs the greedflation report and some other stuff, so that if people are interested in reading it, they can, and they can learn more about the things that Senator Casey is fighting for.
Thank you so much, Kellen.
Of course.
Okay, so we have 5 candidates for Attorney General. Here, Bradford Gray is on another Zoom right now, but I see that Eugene DePasquale is in the room. So, Gene, if you want to go first and introduce yourself, please.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. And happy, we're all bouncing around to these things. So happy to jump in where appropriate. Todd, thank you. And thank you to everyone for being on this. Great to see everyone. My name is Eugene DePasquale, and I want to be your Attorney General. For 8 years, I was honored to be your Auditor General, taking on a lot of tough fights and winning. It was my investigation that found over 3,000 untested rape kits. the horrors those victims had to go through by not having those kits tested. But through the work of myself and my team, we made sure that that backlog was cleared. We worked with prosecutors all over the state, including the FBI. We got that information into the FBI database. We got a lot of bad people off the street and brought justice to victims. It was also in my investigation, it found 58,000 unanswered phone calls at the child abuse hotline. Any single one of those calls could have been life or death for a child. But it wasn't enough for me and my team to just find that problem. We worked with a bipartisan group in the legislature to fix the child abuse hotline. And we traveled all over the state, including to the Lehigh Valley, making sure that child caseworkers had the tools they needed to make sure our children were better protected. Following the horrific shooting at Stoneman Douglas, I led the school safety task force, traveling the school districts all over our state, making sure that our schools were safer so that our kids could learn in our schools. And some of you may have recently heard about Governor Shapiro canceling the contract of Real Alternatives, the fraudsters giving pregnant women horrible information. Well, that started with my investigation into Real Alternatives. And we found out not only were they giving pregnant women horrible information, but they were also using Pennsylvania tax dollars to build their businesses in other states. So we've now put a stop to that practice. And it's also my investigation. It was the first one I started as your Auditor General into all the Marcellus Shale drilling, making sure that our drinking water was better protected. Lo and behold, you may not be shocked to hear it, but Governor Corbett's team was not doing enough. Well, as a result of my investigation, they were forced to hire new inspectors and better protect our drinking water across the state. But I also offer a personal story as a candidate for Attorney General. On October 5th, 1969, my dad was wounded in Vietnam, shot twice in the right leg, once in the left. He was sent to a military hospital where they prescribed him synthetic heroin. That led to a 30-year battle with addiction, eventually him dealing, and eventually a 10.5-year federal prison sentence. See, I've seen both failed war in the history of the United States, and that is the war on drugs. I've also seen both sides of the criminal justice system. And I also know what it's like to struggle. Look, I played 2 sports in college while working as a janitor and put myself through night law school. While I was in night law school, my brother Anthony, who had muscular dystrophy, passed away from complications with that. Now, for those of you that know about muscular dystrophy, we didn't call it that then, but we now would call it this. He had a pre-existing condition. Because of that, insurance companies would not cover our family, so the bills kept coming even after the funeral. My dad had to come to his funeral in shackles. See, I know struggle, and I know what it's like to take on tough fights and win. And I want to put both of those experiences together to be your Attorney General, to protect reproductive freedom, to protect our environment, to push back against these crazy book banners, to protect our most vulnerable in our schools, to protect the LGBTQ community, and to make sure that we protect our democracy. And I also know how to win. I've run statewide twice before, and I've won both times, including once when Trump was on the ballot. I'm putting together a coalition that includes organized labor, environmental groups, a diverse coalition from every single corner of the state, including mayors, state legislators, state senators, because it's important for me to not just be, even though I'm from Pittsburgh, not just a Philadelphia or Pittsburgh campaign, but to put together a 67 county campaign to make sure that we can keep this office and make sure that we are moving this state forward. My name is Eugene D. Pasquale, and I want to be your Attorney General. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Eugene. There is a question in the chat. Texas law claims jurisdiction over doctors and women who get abortions here in Pennsylvania. Do you intend to support Texas law?
I absolutely. But certainly they're here to have an abortion. They will have as strong a supporter as you could have with me as Attorney General. And I will also team up with other state attorneys general to make sure that we are working together, not just so it's not just Pennsylvania, but we have other allies and other state attorney general's offices across the nation to make sure that wherever women go to have their abortion, when that state allows it, we'll make sure that they have the protection they need.
Thank you. Any other? Go ahead, Michaela. A question.
Thank you. First of all, I want to start off by saying I'm very sorry and about what happened to your father. with the synthetic heroin and eventual, prison sentence. But my question is framed around the Schedule 1, drugs that include cannabis.
Yeah.
What is your position on legalization for adult recreational use? And do you believe that the revenue that would come from the legalization and the sales of cannabis would help to enrich our coffer for the state of Pennsylvania to further bolster perhaps infrastructure, perhaps, building, homes for, the homeless or, low income, people, making more affordable housing, but cannabis in general, what's your position on the legalization?
So all of you are, if you're on a computer right now or a phone, you can look it up right now. In, I believe it was 2017, I became the first state elected official in Pennsylvania history, calling for the legalization, the regulation, and taxation of marijuana. So it's there. You can look it up. I was the first one to do it. I believe the federal government. I love President Biden. Support him 1,000%. I think he should deschedule marijuana yesterday. And so for me, this is, first of all, it's simply the right thing to do. The fact that we could still potentially put someone in prison for marijuana literally is insane. Secondly, it's a way to develop new businesses, and it's also a way to bring tax revenue into our state. And so I remember when I did this, the Republicans, you can imagine the hubbub they made when I came out with this position. You could look it up. They are, hair on fire, all that other crazy stuff. But my main reason was simple too. One, on just a justice issue, the idea that we're still potentially throwing people in prison. Number two, we know that it was not fairly enforced. As I would jokingly say, how many dorms at Yale were raided over marijuana? Come on, we know who was getting thrown in jail on this. And look, and I'll just give you a little side joke on this. There was actually a pro marijuana newspaper, and they came to interview me the day I came out with this position, and they said, "You are the perfect spokesperson for this." I'm like, what? What do you mean by that? They go, "You're so boring." So I mean, we all have dreams as kids, maybe to play in the major leagues. I didn't know if I wanted to be the best spokesperson for marijuana because I'm boring, but I guess if you take what you get in this world. But all of you can look that up. That is, although I don't know if that quote got in there, but that's my position. So, but as Attorney General, let's just assume for a second that law does not change as Attorney General. I will make it clear to my team, we are not prosecuting people for marijuana offenses. And so that is something that I will make sure that we are not doing, that we are decriminalizing it as Attorney General. I'm not going to put anyone in prison over that, period, end of story. But I'm going to continue to fight to legalize it, to make sure that we do it the right way so that we use the tax revenue to help our state. And I also think we can, when you legalize it, you also can keep it out of the hands of some of the people we don't, like younger kids. You can be smart about it. And you also make sure that it's a safer product, because I do know some of the stuff that's out on the street today is not safe. So I think it makes sense from a whole range of policy reasons why to take that position. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. It does.
Okay, two quick questions. Alex, I see your hand up.
Yes, I wanted to know about your position on the use of ESG initiatives by asset managers, because climate risks are very real financial risks as we transition to a net zero economy.
Yeah, so when it comes to particular state pension funds, where this would be the most relevant as Attorney General, I believe that we have to take a broader view of how to make these investments, and not just what's going to make money today, but what's going to make money in the long term, and also using it for policy positions that make financial sense for the state. Look, we have to win this battle against climate change. So to me, using our pension funds in a financially prudent way to make sure that we are investing in clean energy moving forward, to me, is both good for the environment, and it's also good for our pensioners as well.
Thank you. Mike, last question for Eugene. Mike, you're muted yet.
Yeah, I kept clicking the wrong button like a dummy. Eugene, thanks for coming. I was looking you up a little bit, and I see that you, while you were Auditor General, worked towards prison reform, which is definitely something that's sorely needed in this state. In fact, before you were in that office, America has the highest rate of prisoners per capita in the world, and Pennsylvania's was higher than the American average, so that was bad. And it has gotten a lot better since you started those reforms. And I would wonder what you can do as Attorney General to continue that work.
So for starters, when I was a state legislator, I helped pass, and again, it was obviously when you're in the legislature, you have to do this with others, passed in a very bipartisan way our first judicial justice reinvestment act to begin the process of criminal justice reform. As Auditor General, I audited the correction system, including some of the job training programs that we had, even auditing the financial impact of an entire criminal justice system. So the cost of incarcerating someone in Pennsylvania, and again, some people that are a threat to society, clear, like prisons exist for a reason. If someone is a threat to society, we need to have them. But I had felt that we were jailing way too many people. And that also started with the financial implications of this. Incarcerating someone in Pennsylvania costs on average, again, it can fluctuate depending on the level of prison someone is in, whether they're in maximum security or not, but it's between $40,000 and $50,000 per inmate per year. The cost of educating a child in our public education system is about $10,000 to $15,000 per child per year, assuming they're not special needs. So to me, where would we rather put this money? Again, if someone is a threat to society, I completely understand that. And as Attorney General, I may have to be a part of putting some bad people away. But as a taxpayer, we are better off making those investments in public education, specifically when someone is not a danger or not a threat to society. So I want to point out that was one of the reasons why I came out with that report. As Attorney General, look, I can continue my work on advocating for the regulation and taxation of marijuana to push for legalization so that there is no threat of anyone even being incarcerated for this again. We can also look at sentencing reform. Look, I talked about my dad and his incarceration. Look, if he were sitting, when I say you're sitting here, we're all on Zoom, but I would say this publicly, privately, and even though it pains me to say this, he deserved to have some prison time for what he did. He would say that. But 10.5 years for a nonviolent offense is entirely crazy when he had never committed a violent act. So to me, he is a prime example of someone that, yes, should have had some prison time and then really should have been put into a rehabilitation program, which he eventually was able to get in, so that now he's actually a much more productive citizen than costing taxpayers, money for a 10.5 year federal prison sentence. So, that, and again, my personal experience is a little unique on that, but we've all probably known someone that has been incarcerated for some reason, and some maybe should have, maybe some shouldn't, but this is to me is personal. And so as Attorney General, I'm going to continue to fight for those reforms. And also on the pardons board, I think you sometimes have had, some people that go on there looking to, vote yes or vote no all the time. I've made it clear that I'm going to take it on a case by case basis. But I also want to make it clear, I don't care about the politics. If someone deserves a pardon, even if the politics are bad, I'll still vote for it.
Thank you so much, Eugene. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you on the campaign trail.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
Go
you.
get him, Kier.
Next up is Kier Bradford Gray.
Thank you, guys. How are you? Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you tonight and introduce myself. I want to start by saying this. I appreciate my male counterparts wanting to stand up for reproductive rights, but I am reproductive rights, and I am stepping up because my rights are under attack. In many vulnerable communities, rights have been under attack for a long time, and it's time to have someone who feels the pains that larger, more well-resourced, more sophisticated organizations have preyed upon for far too long. I love the role of the Attorney General because it has an enormous opportunity to offer protections in the area of public safety and other areas where people are denied access to basic qualities of life. I wanted to make sure that I use everything that's in my arsenal as the CEO of the 4th largest criminal defense firm in the nation, the Defender Association of Philadelphia. I've learned a lot about the drivers that impact public safety. I want to use all of that insight to target crime where it needs to be and not bring people in the system who don't need to be in the system for political expediency. See, my fights will be fair. It will be just, and it will be transparent, and the decisions will be final because I have the credibility that makes sure that people know that when people come into this system, it's because they deserve to be in there and nothing more. I also know what it feels like to be in households that have been impacted not only by crime, but also by being preyed upon by more sophisticated, powerful interests. My mom and dad, two proud union workers, I saw them face adversity just trying to provide the basic stabilities for me so I can have a better life than they had. My dad was a water and sewer repair guy who really failed when he needed health care that he paid into and couldn't get it. My dad's medical debt went up while his health deteriorated. That sent my family into financial turmoil. My mom, who was a parole officer, had her stability ripped from underneath her when her and her African-American coworkers were fired. And despite her union's effort to get her a good paying job, they couldn't help her when she was discriminated against. It was a lawyer that came in and racial discrimination was exposed, and that left a profound impact on me on why I wanted to be a lawyer to protect families like mine. I became a public defender, and I represented the most vulnerable of us against the most powerful organizations and entities. I made sure that everyone had access to a fair and just system. And when they needed to accept their responsibility, I counseled them to do that as well. But everything was credible and final because what I did is I made sure that I challenged the systems when they made assumptions that were biased, or when they made assumptions that were based on social economic status, or when they made assumptions because they didn't understand the person because their lifestyle wasn't the same as theirs. I am a natural protector, and my successes, well-documented successes, show that I have what it takes to take on more powerful interests and win. Another area that I feel like I've excelled in is when I got an opportunity to become a leader. Josh Shapiro appointed me to lead the public defender office in Montgomery County. And it was there that I saw my passion and commitment, not only for people, but also to share resources, that power was infinite. I was able to help collaborate and create a system that was more responsive to the needs of the community. And what I did there was I created opportunities for the community to play a role in these systems' outcomes and decisions. We created what we call participatory defense hubs that I spent my time going out and training people on the systems process so that they could figure out what they can do to make those decisions go better. Those initiatives are still going and growing today. I brought that to Philadelphia and was able to create 10 community justice hubs. There's also one in Chester County, and there's one in Erie and Allegheny. My leadership spreads and it's infectious because what I do is I make sure that the types of collaborations I make are long lasting and sustainable. I not only collaborate with community very well, but I collaborated with all justice system stakeholders. We were able to reduce our prison population safely. I was able to bring creative initiatives into the fold so that we had a way to give low-level offenders an alternative than to sit in jail at enormous cost to taxpayers. We created what we call pre-entry groups, where community support systems that already existed were brought into the system so that judges and magistrates had alternatives for low-level offenses that allowed people to go and grow and keep what little supports that they had while they were fighting their cases. And oftentimes, that support on the front end allowed them to have better results on the back end. These are things that I brought to the leadership role that I've been in. And I've been well recognized as not only a statewide leader, but a national leader. Governor Wolf appointed me to be a part of Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency because he knew my insight would advance solutions that helped bring more people into the protections of the office. I want to be your Attorney General because I know the enormous amount of opportunities that that office has to also go after people who steal money out of our pocket, food off of our tables, and roofs from over our heads. Attorneys Generals are stepping up when insurance companies deny access. Attorneys Generals are stepping up to provide greater financial opportunities to go after price gougers, people who do predatory scams, and people who are denied opportunities for wealth by financial institutions. They're also stepping up to make sure educational opportunities are fair and balanced, and kids are able to learn the appropriate context of our history. And they're stepping up when people are not paying fair and renting to people who really need housing stability. I know what that looks like, and I know that the people sitting next to me at the Defense Council table face all of those adversities. I want to bring all of that awareness, all of my leadership, all of my passion, and all of my resources of being a well-respected trial lawyer to the role of the Attorney General to be your partner and do things together that we couldn't do alone. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I welcome any questions.
Any questions for Keir Bradford Gray?
No questions?
Claire, are you trying to say something?
Yeah,
I would love to say something to my girlfriend.
Oh,
Hi,
Go ahead, Rosemary.
how are you doing?
I'm good. Hi, Michaela.
Terry, can I ask a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know who was first, but yeah.
Go ahead,
I'm-
Roger.
This is Roger Thomas, and I want everybody to know that I'm gonna ask every DA candidate the same question. Pennsylvania jurors get paid $9 a day for their jury service. And about 60% of the juries in the state of Pennsylvania have no Black or minority members. Emily Kincaid is trying to change this. Would you be in favor of changing the $9 a day fee?
Yeah, so I'm running for attorney general. I'm not running for a district attorney. But I wanted to make sure. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said every DA candidate. So I apologize. I have been a part of a task force in Philadelphia to actually help to raise not only the pay, but also the universe of people that can serve on juries. And some of the other areas that are problematic is that if you are charged with a misdemeanor or an offense that is punishable by over a year or more, you can never sit on a jury. That includes many misdemeanors. Many people don't know that. And so people aren't called to participate in a jury so that a person can really have a jury of its peers. But the $9 threshold is really offensive. We're asking people to do their civic duty at a huge detriment to them. Sometimes small business owners can't participate because it would cripple them. Sometimes people who work on per diems can't participate because it cripples them. This is something that we need to drive incentives for people to want to participate in this very important aspect of our system.
Thank you, Kier. Rosemary, did you have a question for Kier?
Yes. What does it mean to be a public defender?
Thank you.
I know you would become the first Black attorney general in Pennsylvania, and we're all for you.
Thank you. So what it means to be a public defender is that I use my legal expertise to fight for constitutional protections on a different side. And no fight for constitutional protections are holier than any other. I have learned the art of solutions by the art of negotiation. I learned the art of negotiations by bringing good solutions to the table. I have listened to communities and had a really deep, profound understanding of what the drivers of crime were. I have also learned how to understand the profiles of people who have been disinvested in and their communities have been disinvested in, which landed them next to me. Not only was I a public defender for both youth and adults, we were also public defenders and child advocates for kids who are deemed to be abused and neglected. So I've seen a lot of devastation in vulnerable communities, and I know how to target what that looks like and how we raise the threshold of the quality of life for people, using the role of the Attorney General to stand up for them. People need access to different things, and especially as it relates to stabilities, housing, healthcare. These are the profiles of the people that came into my purview. And I know being a public defender offers a greater investigatory opportunity because we know all the gaps that the prosecutions have. We understand how to fill those gaps, and we can do the best job. I always say this: it's easy to prosecute a bad guy. It's hard to defend a bad guy. And we have done that on the other side, and we understand what it looks like. Inside and outside of the courtroom, we know the weaknesses and the strengths of the system, and we bring all this information and experience to the table so that we can do the best job to bring balance to our system of justice.
Thank you.
Sorry, I muted myself.
I think Michaela.
Any last question for Kier?
Michaela had her hand.
Michaela?
Thank you for recognizing me. I just want to start off by saying my thoughts as a transgender woman and keeping my thumb on the pulse of everything that's happening across this United States. In excess of 430 plus legislative laws are on the books right now to be passed against families, doctors that help children. Well, now when I say children, I mean, 18 plus. I'm 60 years old, so
You look fabulous.
But I always said that the blood should, is on the hands of these legislators that are passing these awful laws that are driving children to suicide. What if just assume that our election this year goes to the Republican side, and on the Republican side, there's a lot of anti-LGBTQ people. What can we do to prevent these laws from passing in the state of Pennsylvania? So far, so good. We've done a great job at quelling anything. Yes, that's happening. I know that we just almost dodged a bullet with Doug Mastriano. He's running around with the group known as the New Apostolic Reform. The same. What's your position on protecting the rights of families to accommodate their children to transition, if that's indeed what they are steadfast all about?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I love your question, because these are very near and dear to me. These are situations that are deeply personal to families, and government should not be playing a role in that. I believe that. But also, it is not lawful for institutions such as healthcare institutions to discriminate against anyone based on their race, their gender, their religion, or their creed. And this is something that I will hold our state to, our Constitution. We now have in our state Constitution a Equal Rights and Equal Protection Act that allows or ensures that any entity who is getting state dollars in our state cannot discriminate on those bases. I will make sure that I uphold the law and make sure anyone who is doing business, especially providing access to something that is so basic and so necessary as healthcare, will not discriminate in doing that. And the Attorney General's office has a section dedicated to access to care, where people need to work with communities, especially in vulnerable populations, to help them understand how to inform the Attorney General of what's happened to them when they are denied those very basic rights. So this is something I see healthcare as a human right. And as a human right, I will stand up for anyone that needs to access it for their own well-being, physical or mental.
Thank you. And with that, I'd also like to let you know that I am the founder, executive producer of Schuylkill County Pride Fest. We're coming into our 5th year this June, and I would just like to extend an invitation for you to show up and talk to our kids in this county, because they are profoundly affected by these issues. They're very keenly aware of what's happening in the United States, and it's freaking them out. And like I said to the person before, we just need these children to hear the responsible voices of people who got their back. So
I hear you.
Invitation is open. Schuylkill County Fairgrounds, Auburn, Pennsylvania, June 8th.
Michaela, we will reach out to you because I'd love to do so. I'd love it, and I'd be honored. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kier. We do have a few more candidates. Thank you
I think
again.
there was
We'll see
one
you
last
on the
question,
campaign
Todd.
trail.
I'm
What's
not sure
that?
if Alex, there was one more question, if Alex can go.
Oh, go ahead,
I'll be
Alex.
brief, I
Real quick.
promise you.
Okay.
Sure. I would just like to know really quickly where on your priority list enforcing environmental protections and fighting oil and gas, including coal and natural gas companies for misleading consumers about their role in global warming, falls on your list.
Well, first of all, that's high on my list. This office is already set up to deal with those things. So I would use the levers of the office to do that. But I'll tell you, as a person that lives in a densely populated area, that really a lot of toxins have come into my neighborhoods. It impacted my children's ability to breathe clean air and drink clean water. I know what that feels like. And I know when communities who get preyed upon and dumped upon by big businesses, those are usually the more vulnerable communities that don't have the ability to fight back. I feel that. I feel it every day when I live in this community and I see not only big companies coming in with more carbon monoxide trucks, but also when landfills are coming into areas where they think people are not going to be able to stand up for their rights. And some of the politicians are being paid by these landfill organizations to actually rezone for those things. not on my watch. And I will not allow anyone to be preyed upon by bigger or interests. I won't do it. And this is something that I'm not only saying I'll do, I'm known for.
Thank you again, Kier.
Thank
And
you
again,
guys
we'll
so
see you
much.
on the campaign trail. Next up on deck, we have Joe Kahn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, I know you're in here. There he is.
Hi, can you hear me, Todd?
Yes.
Everyone? Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
So first of all, thanks not just for having me, thanks for everything that you all do, especially to make sure that we elect good people and elect Democrats. I am on my way back to Bucks County, Central Bucks County, after a big celebration that we had to really celebrate the first time ever that we re-elected a Democratic majority in Bucks County. So we're really excited about that. We're obviously excited, like you are, about our statewide elections. And in particular, where I am, where we kicked the Moms for Liberty out of our school board and protected my kids' schools. We're just over the moon about these election results. So besides being a candidate for Attorney General and someone who spent his whole career trying to keep people safe, I was once a Democratic committee person. So I really appreciate the work that you do. But as I said, I have spent my entire career trying to keep folks safe, whether that's from crime, from corruption, or attacks on our rights. And that is the work that I've done. It is the work that we need from our next Attorney General, and that's why I'm asking for your support. As I said, I'm heading back to Central Bucks County. I grew up not too far from where I am right now in Northeast Philly. And the way that happened was when my father, who was born in India and raised in Pakistan with dreams of coming to America to build bridges, when he met my mom, who was raised by a single mother in West Oak Lane, and when he fell in love with her and asked for her hand in marriage, they try to figure out, where can you raise a family if the dad is Muslim and the mom is Catholic? So they settled on a Jewish neighborhood, which is how I ended up in Northeast Philly. And I had the good fortune to be raised in a really inclusive and welcoming community, went to great public schools, went off to the University of Chicago to study law. And at that time in my life, I had spent my entire childhood and adolescence always feeling different. In every room, every conversation I ever entered, I had to figure out how to relate to people. And fortunately for me, there was a young professor who kind of looked out for me. He had a similar background. His dad was a Muslim immigrant. His mom was a Christian American. And he too always had to navigate cultures and figure out how he was going to relate to others. And because I had the good fortune of having Barack Obama as my professor and as my role model, I came to understand that always having to figure out how to relate to others wasn't a handicap that I was born with. It was my superpower. And that's what enabled me to figure out that what I wanted to do was to stand up for the most marginalized members of our society. I came home to Pennsylvania and I prosecuted child abuse and domestic violence and sexual assault in the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, learning how to not just listen to and advocate for, but being a champion for those who needed someone to stand up for them and get them justice. And then I learned how to take on even bigger fights, first by going after corruption. Many of you on the call are familiar with the work that I did in the Lehigh Valley, taking on not just the mayor of Allentown, but the mayor of Reading, and all the business people and all the folks that profited along with them because there were too many people looking out for themselves instead of those who need government most. And it wasn't just in the city halls of Allentown and Reading that I rooted out corruption when I was a federal prosecutor, but it was taking on corruption in corporate boardrooms. Because I didn't just go after political corruption in Allentown. When I shifted gears into civil justice, my first client was the city of Allentown. And when I went after the opioid companies who had exploited a heroin epidemic just to make more profit, that was the kind of corruption that needed to be rooted out as well. The kind of corruption we saw in Silicon Valley companies like TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, who targeted kids like mine with their algorithms, trying to keep them hooked on their screens in order to make more money. It isn't just the work that I've done protecting people from crime and corruption that I'm proud of. It's the work that I've done defending our rights. Here in Bucks County, I was targeted for being the only county solicitor in Pennsylvania to use the power of my office to advocate for access to the abortion pill before the United States Supreme Court. And I did not flinch when those attacks came, because the mother who raised me was an ER nurse who told me when I was about 8 or 9 about the woman she lost in her ER, because that woman did not have access to safe abortion care. And the children she did have grew up without a mother. And I can't believe that 40 years later, we are here having to defend and protect the right to abortion. But make no mistake, the Republicans will talk tough about crime. They are not interested in dealing with public safety in Philadelphia or Allentown or Pittsburgh or anyone else. They are coming for these rights, and these are the rights that I've defended. I've enforced our constitutional right to a clean environment. I've done that not just once, but twice. I'm the only county solicitor to ever do that. We have a constitutional right to clean air and clean water and the enjoyment of our natural resources. It is a superpower that the Pennsylvania Attorney General uniquely can use. And I have done that work as a solicitor in Bucks County. I want to do that for all of Pennsylvania. And many of you know that when our right to vote came under attack in 2020 by Donald Trump and his goons, I stood not only to protect the right to vote in Bucks County, but I led the courtroom defense of county solicitors across Pennsylvania to make sure that we beat back every one of those bogus, nonsensical claims. I want to be your next attorney general to do all this work and to take on new fights on housing justice and going after big tech and standing up for workers. But first, we have to win. And that is the reason that as you know, I'm the candidate running from a battleground area, Bucks County. But when I did my first public event of the campaign, and several of you were there, I chose the Lehigh Valley because, like Bucks County, it is a battleground. It is comprised of so many of the voters that too many Democrats take for granted, religious and ethnic minorities who will consider voting for Republicans if we don't show up and we don't earn their vote. And I couldn't be more excited by the support that we've received in areas like this. Those of you who were at our rally in the Valley know that we had 22 elected officials from across Lehigh and Northampton counties united, progressives, moderates, Black, white, Asian, Latino, gay, straight. We had everyone represented together in a bold statement of unity to get behind a vision of justice that will truly speak for all Pennsylvanians. So I am honored to spend this time with you. I'd be honored to have your support. And Todd and others, if we have time for questions, I'd be happy to continue the conversation with all of you.
Sure. Matt, you have a question.
First, quick point of clarification. Mr. Khan took care of a former mayor of Allentown, not the current mayor of Allentown. Yeah, and I'd love to hear. I think I want to credit Mr. Khan for the work that he did to prosecute corruption in our city. It makes life in City Hall significantly easier now. And if you wanted to talk more about that, I'd be interested. I'm most interested from the perspective of a resident of the city of Allentown in hearing a little more about how you would support an environment that would make it harder for people to access illegal guns in the Commonwealth, or how, some path toward helping us eliminate gun crime through the AG's office. But the other thing I'd be interested in knowing a little more about is, obviously there's attacks on our electoral process by people who are upset with the outcomes. I'd be curious to hear a little more about how you'd help us protect democracy in the Commonwealth.
Sure. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question. Congratulations again for being the mayor. And look, honestly, I will just say that I couldn't be more proud of the new leadership that has come forward in Allentown once we were able to get rid of those who gave the Democratic Party a bad name. And it was very difficult to leave my position as a federal prosecutor. It was 2016. And for the first time, I loved my job being a federal prosecutor. And I never thought about the fact that I was really lucky that when my dad had this dream of coming to America to build bridges, the man in the White House wasn't calling for a ban on all Muslim immigrants, which is what was happening in 2016. It was a man named John F. Kennedy. And that is what inspired me to enter the world of politics and step away. And I felt really conflicted about stepping away from my role as a federal prosecutor. And I made a promise to myself that if I had the opportunity, I would do something to be part of the solution in Allentown after we rooted out all that corruption. And so that meant when I had the opportunity, standing up to help the new leadership when it came forward. Many of you know that when Susan Wild ran for Congress, they came after her, tried to smear her, say that she was somehow part of that corruption. And I was, honored to go on TV and defend her reputation and stand by her. And I've done that for candidates throughout the Lehigh Valley. It is the reason why it was personal to me that the first client that I signed up when I started going after opioid companies was the city of Allentown. So I am excited, Mr. Mayor, that you and other leaders are doing this important work, looking out for the people and not yourselves. But to your questions about, I think one of them was about what we're going to do about guns. And I think the best way to get a sense of what people are going to do is look at what they've done. And you can look at what I've done as a federal prosecutor going after gun rings. I'm figuring out it's the same way we went after Pulaski, Mr. Mayor. We worked our way up from the bottom. We worked our way up to the top. Working through the criminal justice system to make sure that we gave incentives for people to give us really good intelligence and good information so that we could intercept these guns that were being smuggled on the streets and causing harm in our community. It's the same kind of proactive partnership building that we did in Southwest Philadelphia back when I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office to bring down an escalating gun violence rate. It's the same kind of work that we can do throughout Pennsylvania, making sure that we have an AG that understands how to do the work, understands how to be smart on crime, not just tough on crime, and make sure that we are staying ahead of those who will do us harm. We didn't have to deal with ghost guns 15 years ago. Now we do, right? So we're going to have to stay ahead of the curve and make sure that we're being smart and proactive. And as to your question about protecting democracy, look, I'm really proud that I was recognized across the state. The county solicitors of Pennsylvania recommended me for this award I received in 2021 for defending democracy, right, as the outstanding solicitor of Pennsylvania. But honestly, our work was a lot easier than it's going to be. We can laugh about it now because Rudy Giuliani, famously had his hair dye running down his face, and he was in the parking lot in my old neighborhood in Northeast Philly of Four Seasons Landscaping, right? And it seems kind of comical now that they put a clown like Rudy Giuliani in charge of this. But they're going to be smarter next time. They've learned their lessons, right? And they're going to be much more insidious about how they did this. And in 2020, we didn't have a single county in Pennsylvania that had been infiltrated by election deniers running elections. Now they are all over Pennsylvania. I have taken government actors to court, and that is what we're going to have to do moving forward. And I'm going to make sure that we continue to bat 1,000. It's going to be the first order of business as your next attorney general. And I will make sure that we defend democracy again, because that's literally what's on the line. It's our right to vote, and it's the right to abortion. Those are the reasons the Republicans want this office. They're going to talk tough on crime, but they want to come after democracy and come after abortion. I'm not going to let that happen.
Joe, can
Thanks,
I ask
Joe.
you a question?
Go ahead, Roger.
Joe, please don't spend as much time answering this as you spent answering Matt's question. I'm going to ask you the exact same two questions that I'm going to ask every AG candidate. One, Texas claims jurisdiction over doctors and patients who get abortions in Pennsylvania. Do you intend to respect that Texas law? Second, jurors in Pennsylvania
I'm sorry.
Could
you repeat the question? I didn't hear the question. You said a Texas law? Is that the question?
There's a Texas law that gives Texas jurisdiction over doctors and women in Pennsylvania who get abortions. They have claimed that.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you.
Okay. Second, jurors in Pennsylvania are paid $9 a day. Should that be changed? Please don't spend as much time answering as you did before.
Sure.
Answer every question.
I'll give you a short answer. That's what you're asking for. The Texas law is nonsense. I wouldn't recognize it. I wouldn't enforce it. And I would make sure that I defended Pennsylvanians from that nonsense. And yes, I would support raising the rate for jurors.
Thank you. A final question for Joe. We are running a little late, as you can see. We still have two more fine candidates. Anyone like one final question for Joe? Okay, Joe, thank you so much for attending tonight.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Same. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you. Thanks.
Jared Solomon was on deck. He's just a few minutes from his home. So we're going to recognize Jack Steimer. I know they joke with you at state committee, Jack. So I just butchered your last name. I apologize. Jack, you're in here?
Jack, you're still muted.
Unmute yourself.
There you go. I just asked to unmute.
Yeah, you muted me, so.
Oh, okay.
Right. Thank you.
Go ahead.
The name is Stolzheimer, Todd. You did pretty good. So first time out, that's pretty good. I'll give you points for that. And I am the District Attorney of Delaware County, so I'm pleased to meet you all. I'm the only elected prosecutor in this race running to be the State Attorney General of Pennsylvania as a Democratic candidate. I'm the first Democrat ever elected District Attorney of Delaware County. I was elected 4 years ago when we turned this county blue, and I was just reelected by the largest vote any candidate for District Attorney has ever gotten in Delaware County. Now, I'm running for Attorney General because I want to use my experience and my commitment to justice to go to work for all the people of Pennsylvania. So let me tell you why my experience as an elected DA is important to you. First of all, the day I got elected, I promised to not only be tough on crime, but to be smart on crime as well. So the very first day in office, I started an environmental crimes unit, the very first environmental crimes unit in any district attorney's office in the Commonwealth. Together, Josh Shapiro and I prosecuted Energy Transfer Company and held them criminally liable for the damage they did to communities across Pennsylvania in building the Mariner 2 pipeline. I've also led the fight to change and refocus our war on drugs into a war on addiction here in Delaware County. I decriminalized the personal possession of marijuana. Same time, I successfully sued the opioid distributors to bring millions of dollars home to help people with substance abuse disorder, including members of my own family. And I've also made sure that our narcotics task force is going after big time drug dealers. Last year, we took a record $20 million worth of fentanyl off the streets of Delaware County, poison, taking advantage of people who suffer from substance abuse disorder. I'm the only candidate running in this race on the Democratic side who actually opposed the Dobbs decision in a legal filing before the U.S. Supreme Court. Josh Shapiro and I, when he was the Attorney General and I was the DA of Delaware County, filed a legal brief. And when that terrible decision came down against our advice, we both took public pledges, which I intend to take again in front of all of Pennsylvania when I'm sworn in as District Attorney, or excuse me, as Attorney General, to never prosecute a woman for violating her constitutional right to an abortion. I'm the only candidate running in this race who's actually reformed a criminal justice system. When I was elected, Delaware County had the only privately run prison in Pennsylvania, our county jail. I led the fight not only to deprivatize that jail, letting the county once again take it over and keeping the profits that used to go to an out-of-state company now be reinvested in the people who work there and the people who are incarcerated there. And I've reduced that prison population by over 40% by giving low-level offenders a way to get their justice without having to gain a criminal record. I'm the only candidate running here who stood up for economic justice for our citizens. I'm the only district attorney in Pennsylvania who's prosecuted wage theft in the construction industry, putting 4 contractors, some of which got jail time, into criminal court for stealing from the workers and from all of us as taxpayers. And that's why I've been endorsed by building trades unions across Pennsylvania. I have 3 statewide union endorsements. Every single building trades council, including the Lehigh Valley Building Trades Council, has endorsed my candidacy, as have the carpenters, as have the Teamsters Joint Council 53. They know the work I will do to protect all of our rights. And lastly, and probably most importantly, to me anyway, is the work I've done on gun violence. And Delaware County has a city called Chester. It's the only city in Delaware County, and it's Pennsylvania's first city. It's where William Penn actually landed when he came to Pennsylvania. And just so you know, it's my personal story. It's where my mother first lived as a free person when she came to this country as a 15-year-old Ukrainian refugee from a Nazi slave labor camp. Over the last 50 years, though, we've let places like Chester decay, and it became one of the most violent small cities in America, and also one of the poorest places in this region. 4 years ago, I ran for district attorney to do something about that. And I brought the community and the police together to create the most successful gun violence reduction program in the Commonwealth. Number of gun violence homicides are down by 68% over the last 3 years, and the number of overall shootings are down by 72%. That's the kind of work I want to do for people and communities all across Pennsylvania, because I am passionate about keeping people alive and fighting for their rights. Families like mine who struggle to live the American dream, I want to be on your side. And I believe that the record I just described to you, my record of success here as district attorney in Delaware County, is the only way we're going to be able to keep this office in November. Joe's right. The Republicans are coming. They want to take away our rights, and they're going to talk about how soft Democrats are on crime. That's the pitch they're going to use when my colleague, David Sunday, the DA of York County, becomes the Republican nominee. The only person in this race who can rebut that charge and keep this office working for our values and principles is Jack Stolzheimer, the District Attorney of Delaware County. So I would love to have your support. I'd love to get to know all of you during the course of the campaign. But Todd, if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Well, I know there's two questions from Roger, so I'll just quick ask them. One, are you going to increase the pay for jurors? And two, there's a Texas law that is on the books that if someone comes to Pennsylvania, that they could be prosecuted for abortion here. Are you going to support that Texas law?
Yeah, the Texas law.
Texas.
I'm sorry. I think the Texas law is unconstitutional and obviously would not support letting Texas reach their long arm into Pennsylvania to take away rights of our citizens. As to the jury question, I don't think that's something that comes under the jurisdiction of the Attorney General, but obviously I would be supportive of keeping pace with inflation, at least on the jury payment side, so we can continue to have people honorably serve our communities as jurors.
Thank you. Mike, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Todd. And thanks, Jack, for coming tonight. So I guess the question I'd ask, and I asked it earlier, but I guess in a different context. One of my big concerns in Pennsylvania is prison reform. We have, a very high per capita prison population in this state, and it's better than it once was, but it's still not great. And you said that, being soft on crime is obviously a concern for, democratic image and so forth. But how do you square being tough on crime with trying to keep from overflooding our already overburdened prison system and, and putting people who really don't need to be in prison just to keep Republicans from foaming at the mouth?
Yeah, great question. And, until Donald Trump became president, this wasn't an issue. Republicans and Democrats really believed not just in prison reform, but in criminal justice reform. I worked in the Department of Justice. I was an assistant U.S. attorney during George Bush's administration, and they were real leaders in criminal justice reform. And you might know, Mike, in 2006, the Justice Department partnered with the Pew Foundation in something called the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, which was the idea of trying to convince policyholders all across the country that we have to rely less on incarceration in order to have the resources to deal with the underlying problems that so many people come into the system with. DOJ has so many resources, and they did such great studies to figure out how many people. I think the average was about 40% of people in our local jails at the time in 2006 were suffering from mental illness, some kind of mental dysfunction. And we don't have the resources to address them and so we've been trying to do that in Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro, even when he was a state rep, led on this issue. We've been doing that in Delaware County here. As I had mentioned, we had the only privately run prison in Pennsylvania. It used to have 1,800 population every day for like 30 years. That's down to 1,100 now. And one of the things we've done is we meet on a regular basis with the public defender, and we look at the list of people who are in there and what they're in for and what their bail was, and try to figure out, well, why hasn't that person met their bail? They don't need to be in there. How can we get them out? And by doing that, and I mentioned I got reelected by the largest vote ever in Delaware County for DA. So I think people buy that. I think like-minded and smart Republicans get it because, Mike, from a financial standpoint, we only have a limited public dollar, and we can't spend it all on incarcerating people when it'd be much better spent on things like better schools, better police officers. There's a University of Chicago study about how dysfunctional it is to spend money on corrections officers as opposed to a police officer. A police officer on the street deters somebody from committing that crime. The corrections officer just watches them on your dime. So I think we can continue to have these conversations. I want to get back to a day when Republicans and Democrats agreed on criminal justice reform. And I think someone like me who's got the experience I've had in Delaware County can lead at the state level in doing that.
Thank you. Any final question? Ashley, did you have a question? No? All right, Jack, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you in the Northeast on the campaign trail.
You
Thanks
got
for
it, guys. Yeah, thanks so much. All have a great night. Thanks for all you do for the Democratic Party.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Jared Solomon.
Thank you, Todd. Thanks so much for accommodating me. I was on the road. I really appreciate it.
Sure, no problem.
I'm Jared Solomon. I'm a state representative in Northeast Philadelphia, and I'm the chairman of the Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee. And I want to be your next Attorney General. I want to be your next Attorney General because I want to bring safe, thriving neighborhoods with opportunities for all Pennsylvanians in each of our 67 counties. I want to do this work because this is the work I'm already doing in my neighborhood in Northeast Philadelphia. I was raised in Northeast Philadelphia above my great-grandparents' butcher shop, raised by a single mom, public school, special ed teacher. My mom didn't have a lot in terms of money for us growing up, but what she had is amazing fight and work ethic that was unrivaled. And I watched that close up. I watched her invest and believe in students, her students who had been forgotten and left behind by the system. She believed in them, they believed in her, and she was able to unleash opportunities for them that folks never thought were possible. By watching her, I developed my own fight and my own work ethic. I went on to Swarthmore College, Villanova Law School, practiced securities and antitrust law, where I took the fight to large corporations not accountable to ordinary folks here in Pennsylvania. I went into the United States Army, served as an officer in the Army Reserves, and still serving in the National Guard. Now, when I got back home, my neighborhood had changed. Crime was going up, opportunity was going down, and more importantly, people had lost a sense of pride in our neighborhood. So I got to work. I stood up for our neighborhood. I took on the longest serving member of the Pennsylvania legislature, a 42-year incumbent. People said it was impossible. I shouldn't even run. Not only did I run, I won overwhelmingly in 2016. And then I went to work for my community, started investing in my neighborhood. We picked up the trash along our business corridors. We literally lit up the neighborhood with new lighting, brought placemaking anchor properties back, revitalized our rec center, brought the community and youth together in a partnership to make the neighborhood safer. As we did this work, as what Democrats do, we do, which is invest and believe in the power of government to uplift and rework and redefine communities. Crime started to go down and opportunities started to go up. There was only one group that pushed back against the work that we were doing, and that was the outsized impact of special interests. You all know who these folks are. They're landlords that live in different states that don't take care of properties back home here in Pennsylvania. They're gun manufacturers who allow guns to get in the wrong hands. They don't care about our neighborhoods here in Pennsylvania. I stood up to them all and won. I stood up to those gun manufacturers and created and worked on the Gun Violence Task Force, partnership between the AG's office and local district attorneys, drove resources to that partnership, took guns out of the hands of folks, reduced crime. But I just haven't stood up to folks locally. I've taken on the big fights: corruption, special interests, political elites, political power brokers. If your bottom line is not people, but it's padding your own pocket, as your next Attorney General, I'm going to come after you. And on the consumer protection front, which is so vital in this office, I'm going to stand up to those special interests that are trying to take advantage of our most vulnerable, our seniors and our kids. And as 2024 approaches, we know who's coming back: Trump and all of his allies, to threaten abortion access, LGBTQ rights, the very sacred right to vote, and workers' rights. We need an Attorney General who has taken on the big fights, who has the values and the work ethic to make sure that we push back against these special interests at every turn. I'm Jared Solomon, and I would be honored to have your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jared. Any questions for Mr. Solomon? Roger, you're going to ask the last two questions?
I have a fire at him. Hi, Jared. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Jared, there's two questions you've heard me ask everybody, and I'm doing it on purpose. Texas has a stupid law that gives them jurisdiction over both doctors and women who have abortions in Pennsylvania. I want you to speak to that. And secondly, jurors in Pennsylvania are only paid $9 a day. Please speak to that, and please speak to Emily Kincaid. Okay, go for it.
Sure. On the first one, what I would do is modeled after the work I'm doing currently in the legislature. We developed what's called a Women's Healthcare Compact. This compact would partner like-minded states like Maryland, New Jersey, and New York that are defending abortion access and bring them together to create a bulwark against those that are trying to threaten abortion rights. It would prohibit the ability of states that are restricting abortion access from gathering information from women and their families. It would prevent the long reach of the subpoena power to get access to documents, paper, places, and things from women and their families. I would take that same approach to the Attorney General's office. We would not participate or enforce or work with any Attorney General that's threatening abortion access. Secondly, on your question on the jury pay, of course, we need to increase the pay. Being a juror is a critical part of our civic fabric. In fact, we as Democrats are talking a lot about how important it is to defend democracy. We don't just need to defend it, we need to champion and bolster it by incentivizing, rewarding those who are doing that work on the ground level. And paying jurors more, which is such a key part of the fabric of our democracy, does that work.
Thank you. Any other questions for Representative Solomon?
I have a question. It's Michaela.
Go ahead, Michaela.
Okay, so I've had the pleasure of living out in Southern California for a good 20 years, where I think the bedrock, let me start off with this. I think the bedrock of democracy is the voice of the people. And one of the biggest, voices we have is, voting. So my question would be, how far away or how close is the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to looking into having the people vote on propositions that are important to, the people? For instance, in 1996, I was able to vote for the legalization of medical marijuana. That was my voice. And with, tens of thousands of other voices, got that initiative passed into law. So why isn't the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania looking into giving the voice of the people more power, taking away the power of some of the legislators who are writing these awful laws and giving it to the people who, who really want it? For instance, the legalization of recreational marijuana here in Pennsylvania. I think a recent survey had come out, whereas now nationally 70% of the population of the United States agree that we should have legalized marijuana across the board federally and statewide. Why are we not working on giving a voice to the people here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to vote on certain propositions that really are key issues for us?
Michaela, it's fear. The political power brokers and political elites don't want to give the people more power, because that takes away power from vested interests that those special interests that dominate the legislature. We need to take that back. Let me tell you, I've been a champion on these issues. Redistricting reform, that should be the people's proposition. You all should decide who you elect. You shouldn't have political power brokers and elites determine who you can or cannot vote for. Recall elections. When you have a corrupt politician, someone that threatens our democracy, you should be able to say, you're out of here. You have a Trump election denier, you should be able to say, we've had enough. You're done. We want to get you out of office. We don't have that in Pennsylvania. Open primaries, where actually we as Democrats would bring more independents. Independents are trending all our way. Open up the system. Allow people a voice in the system. We need that to bolster our democracy. And to your point, of course, people need direct access to our democracy. There needs to be all different avenues to get your voice heard. And by taking advantage of that proposition proposal, we would do just that. The people rise up and they want an amendment to the Constitution. Why do we fear that? That gives the advocacy, the voice to the very people that we represent.
What do we need to do to get that initiative rolling? Because I think our system here in Commonwealth is antiquated, and the people of Pennsylvania, want a bigger voice. Why aren't we doing something about it? Why do we have to accept that the power brokers and the powerful people maintain, that power? Give it to the people. How can we start this? I would truly love to know how we can get the ball rolling on this.
A lot of these proposals don't necessarily have a vested interest group or special interest. To your proposal, who's the group of lobbyists that are advocating for that proposal? There's no one. There's no one, because it provides the requisite voice. It's a transfer of power from elites to the people. It's a people power move. The way that we do that is we clamor and elect folks who strongly believe in a more robust, a growing democracy. And so we need to demand that of our elected class. Everyone here can do that just as much as I can in the legislature. We need to demand that folks really take our democracy as a core institution, not just to value it, but to find ways to strengthen it. And your proposal is one that would do that.
Thank you.
So we could basically, with a simple vote, on the ballot in November, raise that jurors' pay without having lawmakers or legislators get involved in it. We, the people that elect you, we're making these decisions for ourselves so we can have better pay than $9, per day for jurors. So that answers my question. I suppose that you're all in for, giving the voice to the people.
All in. And it's been my work as a community leader in the legislature. And a recent New York Times article, it's a couple years old. You'll like this. They compared the issues that the legislature actually works on and passes bills on versus what the people want the legislature to do. And there's a complete mismatch between the two, not just in Pennsylvania, across the nation. What your proposal would do would empower just the opposite. It would get issues that people are fundamentally interested and vested in on the ballot, which would bring more voices who have not participated in our democracy to begin to get interested. And when you have in some judicial elections turnout as low as 10 and 15%, we should be doing everything possible to increase the voices in our democracy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, quick last question.
Yeah, thanks, Jared, for coming to speak with us tonight. You said something earlier about elites controlling who we do and don't vote for and things of that nature. And it set off a light bulb, and I can't believe I didn't ask anyone else this. But what's your opinion on the 14th Amendment vis-a-vis a certain individual in this nation and perhaps some of his cronies and things they were up to 3 years ago and change. I was just wondering what, as Attorney General, steps you could take, especially if someone's cell phone records were to come, to be public, what you could do with those. And Jack says
Well,
hi.
Hi, Zach. Thanks for the question, Mike. We all know Trump is an insurrectionist. I mean, by any definition, in any dictionary, any edition, any volume, he's an insurrectionist. He defines it. He fomented the greatest attack on one of our most sacred institutions. And Trump has changed the whole playbook. He does not believe that anything is sacred. Our democracy, the press, Congress, the White House, any branch of government. The only way that we combat that, Mike, is with strength. With someone who has taken on fights like I have, where folks thought it was impossible to win, whether it was changing the direction of my neighborhood, standing up to special interests. People thought that there were no way that I could win those fights, and I did. And when it comes to Trump, the only thing that him and his cronies understand is strength. That's it. We as Democrats cannot cower. We need to stand up to him at every single turn. And that's what I bring to this fight.
Thank you very much, Jared.
Thanks.
Thanks for
Thank
attending,
you.
and we'll see you in the Northeast on the campaign trail. I want to thank everybody for attending. This has been recorded. I will create a YouTube video and send that to the chairs of the 3 different counties so that we can share this. We have some great candidates. There's 5 great candidates running for Attorney General. I know this is going to be a tough decision for a lot of people on who to support, but I think by having this conversation, it has strengthened us. So thank you very much. And everybody have a great night. Here's to our victory in 2024. Thank you again.
Thank you, Todd.
Sure.
Good night.